Hi guys, today let's create a fun illustration of cute legs with cute shoes and stockings. I wanted to show you an exercise from my book, Fashion Illustrations, Techniques in Watercolor. This isn't the exact illustration from my book, but I want to emphasize one of the lessons in the book, which is how to use the white of the paper as a medium. So strategically using the white of the paper or leaving some areas unpainted to create a fresh look, to give the illusion of lighting sometimes, because you don't always want to overwork your pieces. You sometimes want to make them fresh. You don't want to use the white paint all of the time when you work with watercolor, because watercolors are inherently designed to look fresh. So in most of my artwork, when I create fashion illustration or other illustration, I usually do not resort to using white paint. I leave some areas white, and they maybe where the light hits the object most of the time, but not always. Sometimes you want to make the work look painted but not completely painted, just to give the freshness to the image. So for this illustration, I'm using, first I sketched out the illustration in pencil, and then I'm going in with my pens to outline the areas which I want to later paint. So this is an image I just came up with out of my head of legs with platform shoes and some striped stockings. You can create your own version of this, but just as a reference, this is the concept for this exercise. In my book, I have some simple images like a flask and a bag, so you can follow those steps if you do have my book. You may erase the pencil or you may leave the pencil lines, because sometimes that looks kind of cool. Then you want to take your paint and start just going in and painting in the image. Here I'm doing striped stockings. As you can see, I'm leaving some areas of the stocking white, or you could just do the full stripe. It doesn't really matter, because for these stockings there will be white in between the purple lines anyway. But I kind of wanted to do a highlight here. You don't have to. Then after this layer will dry, I will apply some slight shading on the other side of the legs with the same color, just another layer, because when you overlay the same color on top of it, even if it's the same color, it's gonna create the illusion of a shadow. I will do the same for the shoes. I will leave highlights at the noses, at the fronts of the shoes, to indicate where the light source is, and without using any white paint. So this is the idea. This is the challenge, because oftentimes it's almost easy to paint something solid and then just put globs of white paint wherever the light source is. But to me, it often loses the essence, the nature of watercolor, which we want to keep in mind. Watercolors are always meant to look fresh. They meant to look like they're sloppy. They meant to look like they bleed into one another. This is the definition of what, to me, of what a watercolor painting should look like. If your watercolor painting starts to look like you don't know what medium it was done in, it's overworked and completely opaque, this is when you know you may have overdone it. You may have overworked it. It's called, I guess, mixed media, where you combine different mediums to create your illustration. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for my purposes, for the purposes of my lessons, I want to always keep that watercolor look. So this is how I'm working. It doesn't mean that any other way of working is the wrong way. And I have used white paint sometimes. Like, for example, if I forget to leave the white of the paper, I may add those highlights later on. But there will definitely still be watercolor sloppiness, so to speak, in my paintings, because that's my style. My particular style, and the style that I want to teach people, is not labored or overworked. It's not a style of oil painting. It's not a style of acrylic painting, because those are supposed to look more finished. Watercolors, almost to me, they tend to have an unfinished look to them. Unfinished, not in a bad way, but in a way that it's a fresh, spontaneous illustration. So I'm adding a skirt here. Just a fun ballerina style, which I think it's kind of cute for this particular image that I decided to create, which also gives a look of spontaneity and fun to the illustration. And because I want to stick with some of the exercises from my book, because it's a demo from my book, Watercolor Illustration Techniques for Fashion Illustration Techniques in Watercolor, rather. I'm creating a bag illustration. Again, I made this bag up. It's not any particular photo reference. It's just a basic handbag design, but you can use one of your bags to draw if you want to if you want to create a more accurate representation of an actual bag. You can do so too. And I always encourage drawing from observation in order to develop your imagination skills. This is just a made-up bag that I'm outlining in a pen. You can use any pen. You can use a ballpoint pen if you wish, but I like artist pens. Though artist pens, if you notice, they tend to dry out very fast. You have to always remember to close the caps. But I digress. So you outline your bag in a very basic waterproof artist pen here. And then you go in with any color you want. I'm going in with green and blue because I want to make like a kind of a gradation from green to blue. And I'm going to leave some areas white here, also for the freshness look that I'm going for. It's not even, well, it is also a light source, kind of. You can decide whichever side you want the light to fall. I want it to fall from the right, but it's up to you. And don't overthink this. Just make your fun illustrations and use the white of the paper. Always keep in mind not to paint in every single inch of your illustration. That's completely unnecessary to me for these fashion fast sketches. And you can understand once you work with watercolor how it makes it more interesting when you leave some areas white, when you let the paper breathe through your illustrations. I'm adding some shading in some areas. Yeah, so this is my illustration of the day, of the week, for you to have fun with. And don't forget to check out my books in this particular exercise in my book, Fashion Illustration Techniques in Watercolor. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Check out my watercolor tutorial books, available on Amazon and other online retailers.